All right, so it is an absolute honor and a privilege to be with you. And I understand that there's a lot of hype around AI, and I understand that some of you deep down inside are wondering, do I really want to do this? Is this really something that I'm into, right? And my job is to demystify AI for you, to take away the scary parts of it, because let's be honest, we're all scared. We have no idea where we're heading off to. We have no idea. We're just taking this journey, and who knows what's at the other end of it, right? But I want to just share a very quick anecdote that might just take a little bit of the edge off, right? So I'm in Saudi Arabia, and I was called in by the CIO of the largest commercial construction company in that country. And if you go to Saudi Arabia, you will see construction cranes everywhere. I mean, the entire country is under massive construction. And this company is now building the airport terminal in Riyadh, which will be bigger than the airport terminal in Istanbul. Massive. And they also do work with Aramco. They're Aramco's leading construction company. Aramco is the largest company in the world, right? It's the Saudi oil company. Older gentleman raises his hand, have about 50 people in the room, about the same size as this group. And he said, I don't know if I'm up for this. I don't know if I can do this. I said, I now know that you can speak because you asked me, you made a statement, and you've got a laptop in front of you, and you can type. So I know you are more than capable of doing this, right? And when we think back to the world, right, and some of you are old enough to remember the pre-iPhone days, the pre-touchscreen days, right, when technology was complex. And then the great Steve Jobs put all of that complexity behind a curtain. And he gave us the ability to interact with technology in a way that most of us could never even imagine unless we had computer science degrees, okay? That's what generative AI has done for us. We can now do anything we want by speaking in English or another 112 languages, by the way. But I think most of us in this room are probably native English speakers, okay? So you do not have to be a data scientist. You do not have to be a machine learning engineer. You do not have to be a coder. You just need to be able to think what you need, and AI will go get it for you, okay? So there's a lot of mythology about it. But again, you have ChatGPT Enterprise. So you have a very secure environment to upload pretty much any document that you need to without fear of IP leakage or trade theft or anything like that, okay? So for the next couple days, we are going to get you all very much acquainted. And I realize, like any group I come into of this size, there's a wide variance of enthusiasm, there's a wide variance of experience, and there's a wide variance of fluency. Okay? So let me start off by asking, how many of you, let's be honest, right? We're going to have to be honest with each other. That's what learning is all about. How many of you are a bit skeptical right now that maybe this AI thing is way more overhyped than it deserves to be? And you don't get any negative points for raising your hand, because I know a lot of you feel that way. Because that's every room I go into. A lot of people, how many of you are wondering, is this the next fad? Is this the next thing I got to invest my time and energy into, and it's going to distract me from doing whatever I do at Fisher Homes? Raise your hand if you feel that way, because I have no doubt some of you do, okay? All right, we're going to leave it at that, all right? So you've heard a lot from Rich and from Greg and from David and Jessica, but I think it's really important to understand this is a moment we cannot ignore, period. And if you want to be a part of Blockbuster, if you want to be a part of Kodak or BlackBerry, God forbid, the company that fell off the cliff, right? Then we can just, we can go home. We can just use these 2 days and we can do other stuff. But there's nothing fun about being a part of Blockbuster or BlackBerry. That's a terrible, terrible life experience, okay? We want to be the antithesis of those companies, right? And that's why we're here. Because none of us, we are not entitled to success. How long has Fisher Homes been around, Greg?
45 years.
Okay. So clearly you have built a remarkable franchise, a remarkable brand, a remarkable reputation, remarkable legacy. But you're not entitled to the success that comes in the future. You have to continue to earn it. And what's happening across so many industries is that very smart investors are seeing industries like yours that are ripe for transformation. And they are amassing massive pools of capital to go into older, more traditional industries with the intention of creating very new kinds of companies that are AI native and that are going to be operating at levels of efficiency that we could only have dreamed of 2 years ago, okay? And so it's not an existential crisis, but if we don't embrace it now, it will become one sooner than you can imagine. Now, I was in this very room in late October, which is where I had the privilege of meeting David and Jessica, which is how I wound up doing work with you guys. And I will tell you, 75 days ago, compared to today, is mind-bending. What has happened in the last 75 days, since I last stood in this very room, in this very spot, I can't begin to describe how rapidly the capabilities have shifted. AI's capabilities are doubling every 4 months. You can't even begin to appreciate what that means until you compare the models, okay? So that's why we're here. And so let's see, is this going to work for me or not today, please? No, even with brand new batteries. Okay. So whatever we want to call it, right? But I mean, first of all, each of you either has begun to, or we hope will very soon, like today and tomorrow, embrace using generative AI at work. Understand its ability to make you more productive, more capable, more effective. Clearly, we're working on reskilling, but you've got a lot of other employees in the organization that are not here today, and we have to deliver the message and the training to all of them that this is something that needs to happen. And ultimately, what we're trying to do is we're trying to transform our organization, rethink who we are, rethink how work gets done, not to bolt technology onto existing processes, but to reimagine the business from a clean sheet of paper and understand all of the different workflows and the bottlenecks associated with those workflows, and how we can just completely re-engineer ourselves, okay? That's the promise. And that is what, as David pointed, that's what Lennar is doing. They are doing that, okay? These are the organizations that will thrive in the years ahead, the ones that are not just doing it for, I can write a quicker email, I can synthesize, Teams meetings. No, that's great. But that's not what this is about, okay? And so the question from last year to this year has changed. It's not what we can do with AI. And I realize for some of you that's where you are. But for those of us who are pushing the frontier, the question is far more strategic than that. What kind of organization must we become? And I underline the word must. What kind of organization must we become to fully leverage AI, right? An architect, and you guys know architecture, okay? To architect an organization built for an AI native world. That's why we're here, okay? And so we're going to make this workshop very specific. Almost all of the examples will be around residential construction and real estate, okay? That's right? And I don't know, how many of you saw the cover of Time, the Time Person of the Year? Anybody see this on the newsstands? The Time Person of the Year were the AI architects this year, okay? All right, so let me just ask, show of hands, who's in sales in the room? Just raise your hand, just raise them high, okay. Got it, all right, a lot of you. It's amazing how long that took, okay. All right, who is in construction? Who are my construction people? Raise them high, okay. Great, now are you a double counter? Are you a construction and a sales guy? Yeah. How do you do that? Okay, I got it. Okay, I get it. Thank you. All right. Who is with Ascendion? Okay. Who is with Victory Mortgage? Great. All right. Who is with Homestead Title? Who is with Grand Communities? All right, great. And then we've got HR. We know Jessica. Jessica, where's your team? Okay, great. All right, legal. Where's my lawyer?
He's not here today.
Okay. Got it. All right. David, how about David and the IT team? Who's here from the IT team? Okay, great. Who's here from marketing? Thank you. Who is here from finance and administration? Thank you, Chris. And central operations. All right. So we're going to make these exercises specific to each of your individual groups, okay? It's the only way you're going to learn. It's got to be relevant for you, okay? All right, so we covered that, right? And as I said, right, and I love this quote from Marie Curie, one of the first women ever to win a Nobel Prize, right? Nothing in life is to be feared. It is only to be understood. And so this is why we are here today. We are here to understand why AI is getting the level of attention within your organization that it is and what brought us here today, okay? Ideally, right, this is some MIT research that I think is very interesting, okay? And what we have on the horizontal axis, right, and there are about 1,350 respondents to this, so it's very statistically significant. The digitization of work, right? Have we allowed ourselves to digitize, and that includes AI-ify work. And on the vertical axis, are my employees digitally fit? Are they fluent in the latest productivity tools that leverage technology? And we can go from very rote, where it's very mechanical, to people are pretty fluent and they're able to be very, very flexible in how they use the tools. Okay? What we see is when you are able to be in sort of that power position in the upper right-hand quadrant, we have what we call empowered problem solvers. And I've run 8 organizations. In my startups, I wanted every one of my employees to be an empowered problem solver. Okay? They don't come to me with problems. They have ownership and they want to solve those problems themselves. So the highest form of an employee's contribution is when they are empowered problem solvers. Okay? And do you get benefit when you have that? Hell yes. Okay? So an empowered problem solver, right, an organization that is characterized by empowered problem solvers, generates well over half of its revenue from innovation, which means products or services or solutions that were introduced in the last year, right? They're not riding on yesterday's or last decade's successes. They're constantly reinventing themselves. We all know, all my salespeople know, it's a whole lot easier to cross-sell to an existing customer than to acquire a new customer, right? Dramatically different level of effort and cost. Percent from cross-selling, significantly superior to everybody else. Percent of revenue from data monetization, right? Treating your data as an asset and understanding how to monetize that data is huge, right? I'm going to share an example of HelloFresh and how brilliantly they've done that coming out of COVID, okay? 71% driving superior customer experience. But on the financials, almost 20 percentage points higher of revenue growth compared to industry peers. Over 15% net margin compared to industry peers, right? So for my friend Chris in the room, the CFO, and for the executive committee, right, we're not here just to learn about AI. We're here to drive business performance. And if we can get to that really powerful state of making you all empowered problem solvers and your people, we will have done something remarkable together, okay? So this morning, we've already heard from Greg. And Greg, I could not have asked, this was completely unscripted. I could not have asked for a more perfect opening to today's session, okay? Because it takes a lot of courage to walk in and just, delegate your talk. And this is a high stakes meeting, by the way, right? This is, we're here for a reason, right? I just thought that was, it was awesome, okay? It was great. So we're going to do a little bit of an overview of the workshop, and then I'm going to spend some time trying to light a fire under your proverbial butts, okay? If I can be so direct. I want to instill a sense of urgency in you. I want you to leave this session saying, you know what? I know I've been busy working on building homes, selling homes, right, whatever, and I know that you don't have the time to pay attention to what's happening, but I want to bring you into the inner circle. I want to bring you into the future with us. And I think you'll understand why we need to do this, okay? And then we're going to take a break. And there's all kinds of really great snacks and stuff in the back of the room. And then we're going to come back and we're going to start to try to break down silos, okay? We're going to have groups, and I think Jessica and David will, name those of you who have already been told. We want you to just share what you are seeing from your perspective in terms of how you're using AI within your respective department, within your respective team, just to get that discussion going, right? Just to make those silos go away, okay? And then we'll wrap up the morning by talking about relevant residential real estate and construction industry competitors and how they're using AI, so you have a point of reference. So you recognize we're not the only ones on this mission, right? This is going to be a race. And Lennar is a company that I had highlighted when I was here in October, and not surprising that when David and I talked about finding a relevant construction industry company, that's the one he chose. These guys are really investing heavily. Okay? All right, so we've been through that, right? And so, anybody studied Latin? So, does anybody know what this means? This means mind and hands, right? I'm not here to lecture to you. I am here to help you facilitate a learning experience by laying hands on your AI tools and prompting it, okay? And so I love this quote from Confucius: I hear and I forget, I see and I remember, I do and I understand. So we're going to be doing a lot of doing in this session, okay? So now I want to break the ice. And that starts with, you all were given some podcasts to listen to, and you were given one prompting exercise, and you were given two optional questions. Now, as a professor, I love it when I ask my students, did you read the case? And they always say, sure, we read the case. And then I start to facilitate the discussion of the case, and I hear crickets. And it's quite clear quite quickly that they did not read the case. So I'm going to ask you all, okay, and you don't get graded on this, how many of you had the opportunity to do what was considered to be the one role-specific prompting exercise before you came? Raise your hand if you did. Okay, all right, great. So let me ask you, what did you take away from this exercise? What did you learn? What insights did you get from this exercise? And I don't bite, okay? And honestly, please, it's going to be so much more fun if we have a dialogue than if I'm speaking at you, okay? So let's get comfortable raising our voices in this room. It's a very safe space. You work with an amazing leadership team, okay? Let's just open up and start to share. We're going to learn from one another. Please, what's your name? Brandon. Brandon, what group are you in?
Grand Communities.
Thank you, sir.
I'd say I was shocked at what was able to happen. Kind of the takeaway was just limited by your imagination almost.
So failure of imagination is the biggest obstacle. So give me an example of what shocked you. What was the one thing that you just said, man, this is not what I was expecting?
The standard process, we get about 40 pages to review of a deal.
Yeah.
And how quickly you just dump it in and load your metrics and say, this is what you need to look for.
Yeah.
And then it spit out warnings, risk, highlights of unacceptable or risky items.
Okay.
5 seconds.
And you've been in this business for how long?
5 years.
All right, so you're an expert. 5 years, you're an expert, right?
6 months in this current role.
Okay, got it. But then you applied your own experience and judgment to the output, and it held muster.
Yeah.
Was there anything about it that made no sense?
I had to refine it.
Yeah, of course.
Things,
Of course. Yeah.
it was surprising how much it moved, I guess, right?
Yeah, and it was in seconds, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So I would assume that you'll use this again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's in practice.
Okay, awesome. All right, who else? Thank you so much. Who else? Thank you for breaking the ice. Come on, please.
Sure. Doug Smith, I'm operations. regard to what's possible.
Yes.
Right?
Hmm.
Didn't really surprise me, but again, it does continue to amaze me about how close it was even on the first iteration.
Right.
What I've learned is my gap is understanding how to make that replicatable.
Right.
Right? That's
Okay.
what I hope we're going to get out of the next couple
So
of
explain what do you mean by make it replicatable? Give me an example of what you're
So,
looking to do.
I asked a question about a process that we go through that's very complex.
Yes.
And it was able to drill that down to something very comprehensible that anybody in this room could
Yeah.
could quickly look at. So that's great. Now I want to use it all the time.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
so that's what I don't know how to do.
Okay. All right. Great. That's perfect. But thank you. And give me what was it about? What documents did you feed it, or what did you serve up to the chatbot that gave you the output that made you feel so, impressed?
Well, this was a financial analysis that I asked it about.
Okay.
Something we do on a monthly basis.
Right.
That has a lot of tentacles.
I got it. Okay.
And it was able to drill that down.
Right.
To
All right.
the things that I consider important.
Yeah, you bet.
Without me really having to spell that out.
All right. So you're going to create what's called the custom GPT.
Okay.
And it will actually allow you to then automatically upload all of the inputs, and it will create this for you weekly, monthly, quarterly, whatever you want it to do.
Good.
So it's definitely easily done. This capability's been around for 3 years now. Great. All right. Thank you so much. All right. Let me come over here. Yeah, please.
My activity was helping a sales manager prepare for a one-on-one.
Beautiful. Love it. A one-on-one with an employee,
Yes.
with a salesperson.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
So, firstly, my main takeaway was there was a comment made that it's not a spectator sport.
Yep.
And that resonated with me when I was done with the exercise.
Yeah.
It gives you a lot. So if you want to say it square, then say it with flair moment, you have to tell it.
Right.
That I just want the highlights.
Yeah.
And then that way I can go see the red flags and dive deep.
Yeah, and it's very obedient, right? You tell her what you have to be explicit with it,
Yes.
because it can't read your mind, right?
Yeah, yeah.
It tries to over-impress you sometimes.
Yes. So it doesn't have all the context.
Right.
And
Well,
that was a
you
learning
have to give
curve
it the
too.
context. Yes.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
So, but how much more effective this could make a sales manager? Their preparation really determines the success and outcomes of that
Right.
one-on-one.
Yeah.
And so, how much more effective it could make a sales manager? It was super impressive.
Cool. And the first time you've done this?
First time I've looked
Yeah.
at it for a one-on-one. Yes.
Right. Okay. All right. So it sounds like you're going to be using this again.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think we need to have a prompt for all of our sales managers for that prep. So uploaded.
Yeah.
We have an automated one-on-one form, so I uploaded the one-on-one form with all of the data.
Yeah.
Uploaded appointment reports and tasks, images of the tasks that they had done.
Yeah.
It's incredible what it told me. Yeah.
Okay. I love it. Thank you. All right. One or two more. This is great. All kinds of different roles, different experiences. Please.
So my experience was similar to hers.
Yeah.
So I didn't look at projections for the week for sales projections.
Right.
And it didn't have all the context, so the exercise took me through the information I had to provide it
Right.
for the breakdown that I wanted, so that at the end it
Okay.
was thorough
Yeah.
and gave me the information.
And what was the output that you generated? What was the form of the output?
Well, I just wanted specific information, like how far behind goal pace we are,
Yeah.
what pace we have to be at for
Okay.
the coming days and weeks.
Okay, amazing. Thank you. All right. So it sounds like we saw at least 4 of you raised your hands and shared some really impressive outcomes, right? So let me just go to the leadership team now. Jessica, you've been using this, right? And your team has been using it, right? So talk about what your team has been using, right? You came up with some really cool things you shared at dinner last night, right?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I'm sure you guys all know Corey Riegler. If you don't, she's amazing. She's on the HR team. And she had built a culture index companion. So that was taking what we know about the culture index, and originally it was going to be used for enabling one-on-ones, as Emily said. So, hey, I'm going to have a one-on-one with Chris, and here's the things we need to talk about. How can I frame this in a way that best matches my CI with his CI and takes in all those dynamics? As we were entering performance evaluation season, we started talking about how could we leverage AI to do performance evaluations more seamlessly and get a higher quality output with less time invested. Have any of you done the Culture Index Companion to draft your own or people on your team's performance evaluations? Has anybody used it? Yes.
amazing.
I love it.
So it is available to all of you. And
Yeah.
the fact that they're due today, that might be a helpful tool.
I love it.
So the people that have used it, we have gotten resounding feedback, and I'll let Trina speak to it in a minute. But what
Yep.
happens, so Corey and I were in a room, and we started talking about what could be possible. And literally within 30 minutes to an hour, Corey went off. I didn't know how to build a custom GPT. I do now. It's very simple. I learned a couple
Yep.
days ago, and I could do it now.
And this is exactly what we were talking about just a minute ago, okay?
I did it
Yeah.
at the time. So I said, hey, Corey, could this be possible? Could we do this with a performance evaluation? She's like, yeah, I think we could. Literally, she went away for an hour and built what Trina's smiling and excited about.
Yeah.
And what it does is she loaded the PE template. She loaded the culture index for everyone in the company, like what are you? She loaded the culture index descriptions. And she wrote some prompts that says, so it writes it if you're an employee or an associate, it can help you write your self-evaluation, and if you're a manager, it can help you write your employee's evaluation. And it prompts you accordingly in the flow of the performance evaluation. So it says, what were your top contributions for 2025? What are your key strengths? What are the things you're gonna work on? And it walks you through it and prompts you through it, and then it writes it for you with like that. I mean, what probably could have taken Trina, how long did it save you, and what was the output of the quality?
Okay, so Jay, close your ears. It probably took me 20 minutes to
Wow.
make my evaluation, and you guys know how long it normally would take us. I love the fact that everything you just said, it prompts you to think through everything that either you accomplished, the previous year, and or what you want to, achieve, moving forward. And it aligns it with your culture index, and it speaks the way that you would be responding and phrase, the output the way that you would.
Yeah.
I did shorten it in some cases because, but it was amazing how easy it was and how it prompted you through.
Cool.
It really did a lot of the work for you.
Great. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you.
Yep.
Chris, how about you? You're a CFO that is actually embracing these tools, which I love because a lot of CFOs are resistant, right? One of the two functions, the two functions that are the most resistant typically, the finance function and the legal function, right, in general. But you are not of that. You are using these tools. So what are you getting benefit from? How are you getting real effective outcomes?
I use it a lot from, I guess I would say, like written documentation.
Yeah.
So I have the joy of doing a lot of the executive summaries for the executive committee and the board.
Yeah.
And it's a great starting point to
Yeah.
take our working documents and dump in.
Yeah.
And it's like having a really talented new hire
Yeah.
that can give you an executive summary that you can then go in and modify.
Great. Yeah.
And that probably cuts out,
Yeah.
I don't know, 50% of the time on each document.
Which is amazing, right? So we're going to build custom GPTs with the help of Server that are going to allow you, again, just like my friend in the back of the room said, you're going to be able to automate the collection of all of these documents for board prep.
Yep.
And it's going to do all the synthesis for you and spit out an executive summary or a variance document, right?
So I think that's great. The piece that
Yeah.
I don't know how to do yet,
Yeah.
I'm excited, is how do we do more data analytics in it?
Yeah.
Without structuring the data necessarily. Because
Okay.
that's always the part that cleansing data takes
Yeah.
95% of the work process.
Yeah.
And so how can we, we were playing with an example of, like we have the community sales report, which looks at pace and price.
Yeah.
And then we have 25 other processes that tie to it with
Right.
risk factors and phasing reports and community takedown, whatever it may be.
Mm-hmm.
How can we dump all that into
Yep.
some sort of AI process to do the analytics as to where the
Yeah.
risk is?
And we had this chat at dinner last night. Data is always going to be one of the challenges, right? But these tools are becoming far more forgiving in terms of their ability to ingest data than they were even 2 years ago. All right, cool. Thank you. All right, David, how about you? What are you guys using these tools for within the IT group?
Yeah, I'll give a slightly different example
Yeah.
that we might touch on later today. So for my team, obviously we write software, right? We deliver products and services to this organization, the folks in this room, many of you work with us very closely, but it takes a long time to do that, right? We sit down, we gather requirements, we put a document together, right? And we talk to vendors potentially, and it takes forever. So what we're trying to do is some of the new AI tools accelerate our code development cycle. So we want to write code significantly faster, and more importantly, we can also do it with less defects. So in some examples, we're seeing a 30% improvement in turnaround time. which means I can deliver products and services to you to make your jobs easier, right? And serve our customers better, significantly faster. So that's an area this year, we're gonna throw a stake out there, and I don't know what the number is, we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
That we wanna reduce that cycle time by 50% with 100% quality. So if we can do that with the same size team, I can deliver more capability to the organization, better, faster, cheaper, quite frankly. So that's really where we're
Yeah,
gonna focus.
it's great. All right, thank you. All right, any last people wanting to share as we create more of a safe space for knowledge transfer, peer-to-peer knowledge? Yeah, please, Greg.
Sure, I think I agree with the uplift, getting the data there, and what Corey did.
Yeah.
I did this last year for other people's, but I didn't have it there. So I had to go get the manual.
Right.
For culture index, I threw it in there, I took the different profiles in, I went and got the job descriptions.
Yeah,
I had it go through my email
yeah,
for each candidate. And
Wow.
For each person, and give me at least what it could find. It's
Yeah.
not perfect, it doesn't
Yeah.
absorb the data real well.
yeah. A lot more connectors these days than there were last year. Yeah.
Yep. But getting it all set up is an interesting thing, and that was still a very specific use case, right? And then I put the prompt in, I had to say what questions I needed to answer, right? And copy and paste it into the thing.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of back and forth,
Yeah,
and then to Chris's point about the data too, is the custom GPTs in each individual area, right? This one thing.
right.
This does one thing reviews, right? If you can integrate it with all our culture documents, right?
Absolutely.
And then, it makes it much more powerful. So it's like, how do we accumulate
Right.
all this information in the right places,
Yeah,
or the right information? I know there's limitations.
yeah,
To make it as more comprehensive and powerful as one
Yeah.
tool versus having a bunch of small tools.
yeah. And having that context, right? It's all about context now, okay? So the more information it's able to look at and analyze, the more informed it is, the more effective it is at output. All right, so the reason I wanted to do this is I often find as I travel that a lot of successful uses of AI are being used within a department or within a team, but no one else knows about them, okay? And so there's an old saying, you cannot be what you cannot see. And so I want those of you who are more quiet right now that maybe not even used, maybe didn't even do the homework, to hear from your peers that they are using these tools and they are getting real benefit from them, okay? So this is not something that's happening outside outside the four walls of Fisher. Many of your peers are using these tools today and have been to improve their performance. And there's no reason why you should not be doing the same, okay? All right. So let's go on to the next. So the questions now are, what about the podcast? I gave you 3 podcasts to listen to, and I realize you're all busy, but who had a chance to listen to at least one of the podcasts? And what did you take away, right? And these podcasts, this event was perfectly timed because I was able to get a lot of end-of-year 2025 content. So it really was sort of looking back at 2025 and looking forward into 2026. So what did you take away from the podcast? Any thoughts, any insights? Yeah, please.
2 things in particular. One was, this is going to be like a never-ending process, right?
It is. It's a journey it's a long journey. Yeah.
Normally we get a new tool, we say, okay, here's our plan, we're going to execute it. It's
Yeah.
over, we're really good, right?
Yeah. We got it. We nailed it. Yeah.
And next week, the plan's going to change, and we're going to have to just keep
Yeah.
evolving. The
Yeah.
second part, and maybe it's my misunderstanding.
Yeah.
Measuring success, I heard a lot of words, I didn't hear this is the formula to be
Yeah.
able to make that happen.
I mean, and I'm going to get into that in some detail, but clearly it's about adoption and then very quickly scaling and ROI. Okay? But working on the right projects, the most critical projects. So what you're going to hear about over the next, couple of days is there's a process that the leadership team and server are going to go through to make sure that you're going to have a lot of people bubbling up ideas from the ground up, but you're going to pick the top ones. And you're going to really ruthlessly prioritize where the most relevant investments will be to drive the highest impact in the organization. That's really where we're going to. I don't think it's any different than anything else, right? But there's a lot of words, there's no doubt, there's a lot of hype, okay? But it's still driving business performance at the end of the day, and it's about ROI, period. Who else? Yeah, please, and I'll come to you next. 1, 2, yeah.
Similar to Jay, just more on the not knowing what is good enough. I hear a lot of people say, like, oh, I'm using AI.
Yeah.
Through it, and we have a lot of engineers and A-types that they have a process, they know what they're doing, they're used to their estimates and their sheets.
Yeah.
And now when they use it, it changes it a little bit, and they're never gonna be comfortable, and that's what worries me a little bit of, Because the minute they feel like they've done something new and like, oh, I know how to do this, and it changes a little bit, and we gotta keep getting better, I think
Yeah.
living in that world of ignorance is gonna be really difficult for a lot of our people to get used to and to wanna use it because of that, because they know their Excel spreadsheet and
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
they know what we use in our.
Yeah, and this is classic, right? So there's a lot of older software engineers that are dramatically resisting the use of these coding tools, even though it makes them orders of magnitude more effective, right? You know, I do these grand rounds at hospitals with doctors who spent their entire career going to medical school and doing residency, and you can imagine how resistant they are when a chatbot is better at doing a differential diagnosis than they are, okay? They put their entire lives into the practice of medicine, right? So this is, but we're living in a new world where we have to bring a growth mindset to work every day. And people have to make a choice, right? You have to, do I want to continue to play ball at the highest level, or do I want to, I used this analogy last night, be on the junior varsity? I want to play varsity ball, okay? Yeah, please.
We're all little blockbusters. I mean, my thing was like, we're all blockbusters.
Yeah.
Kodaks or whoever. And
Yeah.
half the people in this room have been successful for doing one thing and
Yeah.
do it well.
That's right.
And probably in 3 years, that thing won't matter at all.
That playbook is obsolete.
The people in this room will be entirely different because
Yeah.
people can do this, and I'm not sure I'm one of them, but
Yeah.
people can do this will end up being successful.
Yeah, the
And
play.
I'll have one location in Alaska.
Yeah, right. I hope you like bear, okay? And cold weather. Hope you're a winter sports guy if you're going to be in Alaska. Please.
I really liked the point of kind of connecting the bottom up from the top down
Yeah.
in terms of approach, and how 2025 was really marked by grassroots exploration.
Yes.
And which is like where I feel like we've been.
Yeah.
It's been like, hey, get in there, try it, use it, see what you can come up with. But then the transition to, well, no, now we have to redefine work processes. Now we have to redefine roles
Yeah.
formally, so that they are incorporating these tools. So it's like a transition from, so it just felt like the right pivot point of where we are.
Yeah.
To like, okay, now like, let's figure out, it's like that idea of a lot of people are using it. We don't know what they're doing necessarily, or we haven't documented it. We haven't
Right.
formalized it. And so
Yeah. It's embedded in the organization, right? So there's only so much value you can get out of it when it's embedded in a function or a department or a team.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so now you're raising it up to a strategic, organizational-wide level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which just feels like where we are. So I thought
Yeah.
it was a great time for the.
Great. Thank you. All right. Any last thoughts before I move forward? Yeah, please, David.
Can I ask a quick question? It's a little biased, but I'm gonna ask it anyways, we're all friends. Is anybody interviewing and using AI as part of the screen? Are you asking your candidates if they have the skill set yet? Yeah, you can do it.
Yeah.
You better, because it's in the job description. But we've actually changed all of our functional job descriptions in IT to include AI knowledge, right, and capability, and that's the number one question we have. I think, Chris, you actually.
It was a bit surprising, but as part of our case studies for the new HR leader, that was one of the three.
Yeah.
Was how to bring AI to help it accelerate the organization.
Yeah.
Jessica, can you put it in all the interview packages, please?
Yeah. Yeah.
We're looking at that already, Greg, so we're on.
Yeah. So how about when you, and again, I realize that you are both a ChatGPT enterprise and a Microsoft Office shop. How about outside of those two sort of very iconic tools? Has anybody found other tools that you feel are helping you in other elements of your job or your life? Anybody sort of a little bit more promiscuous in their use of tools outside of ChatGPT and Microsoft? Right, please, yeah.
Yeah, so in marketing, we use a lot of content creation tools. For example, Air AI is one that we've onboarded recently, which
Yeah.
is a digital asset manager tool.
That's great.
To the point where you can search a photo and say, show me a kitchen with white cabinets, and it'll
Yeah.
pull up every catalog photo we have.
Yeah.
So that's a tool we use a lot.
And do you have an enterprise license with that tool?
We do.
That's great. Okay, cool. All right, so, and I love this, right? And remember, what we're talking about with ChatGPT, right, it's immensely powerful. But I will tell you that there are, and I'm not exaggerating, there are tens of thousands of new AI startups, tens of thousands of them, that are working on very specific kinds of tools, like Air, right? And so you're going to find others that are going to be very tailored towards sales, as an example, to operations, to finance, right? There's this brand new Excel AI tool that I promised Chris I'm going to send him, right? So this stuff's happening. But we don't want to confuse people today. We want to stay very focused today. But over time, I want you to be more open to exploring things that are going to make you that much more powerful, okay? So let me just hear now, what is it about AI that you don't like? Let's just put that on the table. What is it about AI that you think is getting in the way of you being successful, or it's annoying to you? Just, what, please.
There's a few things, right?
Yeah.
One, I think it's a very real risk, I don't want to call it that.
Yeah.
Where there's the ethical concerns, right?
Yeah.
I think a lot of the younger generation, as they come in, they're very concerned with that. They voiced it to me a few times.
Yeah.
And then you have
And give me an example. What are the ethical concerns that they're articulating to you?
water usage, right? As far
Okay,
as-
okay. So more environmental stuff with data centers. So, okay, climate impact.
Yeah, data centers, climate impact, chip
Yeah.
shortages,
Yeah.
All those things are kind of.
Okay, so they're taking a much more societal, environmental view and not liking what we're seeing. Yeah, okay.
And as far as like technical goes, I mean, it's 80% accurate, right? 90% accurate, whatever
Yeah.
you call it. But you have to transform how you
Yeah.
work from expecting a 100% accurate result to
Yeah.
now just proofreading it, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I wouldn't call it proofreading as much as applying my critical thinking and judgment, right? That's a very different thing than looking for typos.
Sure.
To me, proofreading is looking for typos. Sure. Yeah, okay. But no, I hear you, right? Yeah. All right, anyone else? Yeah, please.
Along the same lines, I mean, originally, the word was, it's gonna give you an answer.
Yeah.
It might not be right.
Yeah.
And maybe it's gotten better and better and better at doing that.
It has, yeah.
But it gives me some concern about, okay, here, I'm gonna melt down all this data, and I'm gonna get an answer, but is it right?
Yeah.
So that concerns me.
Yeah, I mean, there's no question. The phrase is human in the loop. And just like my friend behind you, right? You apply your judgment. You do critical thinking, right? And you can challenge it and you can say, are you sure about this, right? What sources, what's your logic, what's the reasoning behind this, where did you find this, right? You can challenge these things, right? And so if you do that with the bot and your own experience, to me, this is something you have no choice to do. But I get what you're saying is you'd rather just feed you 100% of the answer all the time and not have to worry about it? Is that what you would hope it would do?
Well, yeah, but.
Okay. and then what are you going to do for work when that happens, dude? That's what I want to know. Okay. What, you got a surf shop set up, or you going to Alaska? You're going to Alaska with my buddy in the back of the room.
You read my mind.
Yeah, okay. So listen, that's why we're here, man. Okay? We got to apply our own judgment, right?
I don't know if you noticed, it's probably something I should have corrected before I spoke, but every time I asked a question,
Yeah.
it said confidence high.
Yeah, that was great. Yeah.
And I've set my ChatGPT to tell me.
Yeah.
Before it even starts giving me an answer, to tell me how confident it is in the answer.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'll get lows sometimes.
Yeah.
That's because my prompt's wrong, or it's not sure what I'm asking, or maybe it can't find the answer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or mediums, so that was one of my tricks around that.
Yeah. But I think that the key point, guys, is, we are ultimately responsible for what we present, what we share. This is, we don't turn this over. We're not outsourcing our brains and our judgment. We're getting a massive amount of cognitive support, but we own the output. We take responsibility as leaders for what it is presenting to us, period. Okay.
One of my concerns internally is the amount of data we have.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
And I know we're going through policies and procedures. We have so much history of data too. And how do we sort through the good and the bad?
Yeah.
And that's, I think, a
Major initiative for this year.
Yep.
Absolutely. Yeah, please.
I do a lot of data analysis.
Yeah.
I'm working with larger data sets.
Yeah.
I've seen it hallucinate quite a bit.
And are they .cbs data sets or what?
Basically anything out of Excel,
CSV?
CSV.
Yeah.
We have an automated tool which
Yeah.
I can share more about a little bit later with our data scraper.
Yeah.
But all of that is coming back, even when I'm testing it, with putting in one of our competition studies, I can say, tell me the big takeaways. And
Right.
they do that excellently.
Right.
If I'm like, what is this specific competitor doing?
Right.
It hallucinated every time.
And is this Copilot?
No, this was with ChatGPT.
Okay, okay. And that may be an edge case that, just it's not ready, and there may be third-party tools that are much more custom,
And I created a custom GPT for that. I
Yeah.
didn't think it would improve a lot of it. This
Yeah.
was me testing it just within the general chat. and working
Got it.
through but
Okay.
That's what I'm seeing today.
And what kind of, so how big are the data sets that you're feeding in?
Well, I'm limited by like my token usage, so I can only have like 2,000 rows in a custom GPT, but on the other ones, I can have like over 10,000, and it will be more accurate in the regular chat than in the custom GPT.
Okay.
And so I'm trying to figure out how to get
Okay.
that to match.
Got it. All right, cool. Thank you. Thank you. I mean, there's always going to be edge cases, right? No one's saying this stuff is perfect, okay? So, so let's look at the tools that are out there, right? So we're all standardized on ChatGPT, right? Now, do we all know that there's about 850, 900 million human beings that access ChatGPT every week, okay? 1/8 of the planet in less than 3 years has decided to adopt this tool. It's beyond inconceivable even a year ago, right? ChatGPT has become sort of we have a lot of P&G brand managers, right? Kleenex, it is like Kleenex. It's not facial tissue. When people think AI, they think ChatGPT. For better or worse, Sam Altman has done a brilliant job of branding this company on a global scale. Now, who knows about Claude? Claude comes from a company named Anthropic. Anthropic's founders are a brother and sister who were very senior researchers at OpenAI, the people that make ChatGPT. They are dominating the coding space. So you'll hear about Claude Code, and you will hear about Claude at Work. That just was announced yesterday, as a matter of fact. That was my podcast for this morning when I was having breakfast, okay? Cursor. Cursor is one of the fastest growing companies in history. It was founded by 4 MIT undergraduates, and they have grown this company to $100 million in revenue in 8 months with 5 people. So let me repeat that, okay? $100 million a month. They're now at $1 billion, by the way, okay? But they were one of the very first companies to get to $100 million in well less than a year with 5 people, okay? Why? Because they're using their own tools. The software developers are coding in Cursor. They're eating their own dog food, okay? So we're starting to see now this phenomena where, if you think about LinkedIn, I think we're all LinkedIn. It took LinkedIn over 10 years and 2,500 employees to get to $100 million in annual recurring revenue. Some of you know the app Calendly, right? Calendly is something where, you have people, schedule an appointment with you. That took them about 8 years and about 1,000 employees. But we're now at a point where we're getting to $100 million in annual recurring revenue per year in 6 months or less with 5 people. That hopefully gives you some sense of the possibility of what we're talking about here, okay? Cursor is a coding assistant, for lack of a better word, right? And so if I am developing code, and Cursor relies on Claude as its underlying large language model. But this is something where, if I'm a software developer, it allows me to, again, there's a phrase called vibe coding. I don't expect most of you have heard it. But this is where you can now write code in English. I can tell Cursor, or I can tell Claude Code, I want you to write this application for me. I want you to create this website for me. I want you to create this, you name it, for me, and it will do it. And these are more sophisticated. There are other ones that are more geared towards designers and novices, like Lovable and Replit, and I can go on and on. But your programming language is not Python, it's not C, it's not HTML, it's English.
So it makes all of us coders, basically.
And we're going to get there. You're running ahead of me, but absolutely, that's exactly where we're going to get there, okay? And so what I want to show you, though, is, right, when 50% of your market would be really disappointed if someone took your tool away you know you have solved a really important problem, right? This is called product market fit in the world of entrepreneurship, okay? Perplexity is the company that is challenging Google for search supremacy. They were the ones that kind of got Google to give up their complacency, because Google had not really innovated search for 20 years. They had no competition. They didn't need to. And then Perplexity came along and added AI to search, and now Google is doing so much more, right? Granola, I use it all day, every day. This is how I take notes in meetings, and it operates in the background. Figma is a design tool that some of you might use. Maybe the marketing team uses Figma, I don't know, but they've applied AI, right? So there's a lot of tools. So I'm now going to jump over to a different deck. Here we go. All right. All right. All right, so let's go. Okay. So how many of you consider yourselves to be innovative, that you have an innovator's mindset, that you look at problems and you're curious and you want to apply novel solutions to those? Okay? Because it is a mindset, right? There are many places like UCal Berkeley, you can actually take a self-assessment test on how innovative you are. Okay? But innovation is the ability to see change as an opportunity. Blockbuster did not see change as an opportunity. They saw change as a threat. BlackBerry absolutely did not see change as an opportunity, right? That is the defining moment for a company, and it comes down from the top, right? So you want to work in an organization where you see changes on the environment as opportunities to really pull ahead of your competitors. So if I think about, some of the things I want you to take away from my talk, the first of all is there are many, many hundreds of use cases now that OpenAI, ChatGPT, and all these other tools can help you do. When I say use case, what do I mean by a use case? What is a use case? I know it's a bit of a product management phrase, but what do I mean by that? Yeah, a practical application to get a result in a specific job function, okay? So I want to prepare for a board meeting. I want to analyze a big stack of data, right? Those are use cases. This is a job I need to get done. And there's a lot of different ways I can get the job done, right? And again, what I call, to me, OpenAI ChatGPT is like a Swiss Army knife on steroids, right? It's got thousands of attachments, and it's almost limitless in what it can do, okay? And some of them are absolutely game changers in the company, and I'm going to share some of these use cases with you, right? The 4 low-hanging fruit cases, however, are for sales. And again, raise your hands, my sales friends. Raise them high, all my sales friends, okay? There is so much opportunity to turbocharge your sales performance. And I'll give you an example. There have been many studies done that show that by removing a lot of the rote, tedious work in the sales function, you can triple to quadruple the amount of time you are looking into the eyes of a prospect or customer, okay? Now, that sounds pretty compelling to me, okay? When I'm up at the bat 4 times more than I was before, I'm going to sell more stuff by default, okay? The same with marketing. The amount of content that we can generate today using these tools, or using ChatGPT image, or last night Greg entertained us, he created a video on Sora. Does anybody know Sora? Sora is the text-to-video creation tool within OpenAI. And you have access to it, you probably didn't know about it, okay? So you can create professional video now by telling it in English what you want it to do, okay? Customer support, this is a huge, huge area, right? We're seeing more and more agents take on the role of customer support. And to the point now where it turns out that the resolution time is going from 10, 11, 12 minutes to a minute or less. Customer satisfaction is improving, net promoter score is improving, okay? Right? Because this is not your grandfather's chatbot now that we're interacting with from 5 years ago. These chatbots don't need a script. They're not hard programmed. right? You can ask it pretty much anything and it will come back with an answer. So these are things that are just absolutely production proven, have been in place for 2 or 3 years in industry. And then software development. We have crossed the Rubicon in software development in the last 45 days. I could not overstate what has changed and how much has changed, okay? Early adopters are seeing real business gains, right? This is not for technical fun. 82% are seeing positive return on investment. This is back to your question, okay? Significant improvements in productivity. People that are leaning into AI are getting 10 or 12 extra hours of their time back each week. I don't know about you, but I would think 10 or 12 hours a week of my time would be something I would love to get back, okay? And I'm going to share with you a study or two. Objectively higher quality work output. If you compare what I did without AI versus what I did with AI, there is an objective ability to say that the output from an AI-led prompt is better than something I did without AI. And one of these studies happened right here in Cincinnati, Ohio with P&G that Harvard Business School ran, okay? Enhanced creativity. You may not know it, but you're now all artists. You have text-to-image tools like ChatGPT Image and many others, okay? And you have text-to-video tools like Sora. So I teach a creativity course at Harvard every year, and it's for graduate students, and the whole purpose of the course is to give people back their creative confidence. Because we lose our creative confidence, we're most creative. How old are we, do you think, when we're at our most creative? How old would you think we are? Who said 8? That's a good guess. 5. We're most creative at age 5. And the reason we lose our creative confidence is as we go through our educational experience, we are forced to conform to societal norms. And those that are considered to be creative are typically labeled as troublemakers in the classroom, okay? And so what we see is when you give people access to these tools, this long dormant creative capability that we all have get brought back to the surface, okay? And it's a beautiful thing to behold my students regaining their creative confidence and to see them being unbounded in what they can do, okay? People are not having to do a lot of the mundane junk work, the rote junk work that they had to do in the past, right? Yes, they have to verify, I get it, but 90% of the stuff they're not doing anymore. And so their people are happier with their jobs, and retention in specific functions like the customer support role are very high, very much higher, right? Significant reductions in costs because of productivity gains, and as a result, we're seeing a lot of top-line growth, right? Now, Rich had mentioned this earlier, right? I drink from a fire hose every morning because the velocity at which this space is moving it's beyond unprecedented, okay? And so you don't need to keep up with this stuff. There are people that you're being surrounded with that are going to help you with this. But tomorrow could be the day that an app that is going to be the best app you've ever thought about in your life for you is either created by David and his team, created by Rich and the team, or third party, okay? Every day, something new is dropping, okay? And we have reached the era of mass intelligence. These tools now have PhD level knowledge, okay? Anybody have a PhD in the room? No? So now you do, okay? You're all honorary doctorates right now, okay? We're gonna have a crowning ceremony at the end of the 2 days, okay? You now have the ability to get answers that only a PhD who has invested 21 years of their academic life studying. And now we have access to that. It's insanity. So we're moving from the era of the human assistant, where we talk to a bot and it gives us some answers, to a completely new world of agentic automation. And what does that mean? Okay, he's looking at me like I'm crazy. We are about to have new employees working for us. They work 24 hours a day. They work 7 days a week. They don't have mommy issues, okay? So you don't have to, pamper them and pat them on the back when they're having a bad day. And they show up every day at work, and they do what you tell them to do. And so we are going to be, all of us, not mafia bosses, but agent bosses, okay? We're all going to be managing agents. So if you didn't know in the past that you were going to be managing agents, I'm here to tell you that you are, sooner than you think. You are all going to have hybrid teams working for you, okay? This is the new world. This is the brave new world we are moving into, okay? It's not science fiction. It's not in the future. There are many companies that are doing this today, okay? And so the tipping point, right? So go back to the point that you raised earlier about the timing, right? AI capabilities are now, they were doubling every 7 months. They're now sort of standing on each other's shoulders. They're now doubling every 4 months. Now, who knows what Moore's Law is? Anybody know what Moore's Law is? You've heard of the name Moore's Law? Moore's Law was what guided the semiconductor revolution for the last 50, 60 years. That the power of a semiconductor in your Intel Inside laptop would double, 2x, every 18 months. 2x every 18 months versus 2x every 4 months, okay? Wow. Secondly, right, you're hearing a lot, and this goes back to your point about the concerns, right? All of this money going into data centers, and now we're reinventing nuclear power within the United States, right? And we're talking about putting, literally, you've probably heard this on the news, data centers in space, okay? Wow. Amazing, okay? And again, numbers vary, but between 75 and 82% of companies reporting AI investment ROI, 96% see it before the end of this calendar year, okay? Now, how many of you have kids in high school or college? So this is going to be an interesting time for young graduates from universities, okay? Everything that we thought we understood about education and our first job out of school is changing. And unfortunately, it is a very challenging time for early career professionals, right? Significant reduction in opportunities for these people. But I'm going to go back to something David mentioned, right? They're now being interviewed as much on their AI literacy as they are on whether they studied accounting or they studied computer science or they studied marketing or whatever, right? And so there is zero daylight here. If you do not bring data or AI fluency into a job interview as a 22-year-old university graduate, you're not going to get hired. And here's the second thing, to just prove a point. The kids that are getting hired, they're not just showing up by themselves. They're showing up with 5 or 10 agents that they have created. They're bringing their posse with them, okay? Me and my 10 agents are going to get some stuff done. These are the kids that are getting hired. Now, I know it sounds bizarre. I know it sounds, Orwellian, but it's happening, okay? It's happening today. And don't even try to keep up with who is in the lead on any given day. This is like the Kentucky Derby. You don't know until the last second who's going to win this race, okay? It is neck and neck and neck and neck. And 1 week, one is ahead, and the next week's another ahead, okay? So I always have loved this phrase, right? The future is already here. It's just not evenly distributed, okay? And so when you live in Silicon Valley, as I have for a long time, or you hang out with venture capitalists, you see the future 5 years or more before other people. So some of us knew that there was something called GPT-2. Long before ChatGPT 3.5, which was the defining moment of the AI era, there was GPT-2, GPT 2.5, right? And so we knew this was coming. It wasn't a surprise. What was a surprise was how damn good 3.5 was. That was what we were surprised by. We did not expect that. So what we're here today is for every one of you to step into the future with us, okay? And I've already showed you the slide. So let me just give you some examples of how AI is being used, right? I'm going to just share a few examples that are not retail, that are not construction-centric. I want to introduce you to a gentleman who's proudly nicknamed the Viking, okay? And why? Because he is the head of the Norwegian Sovereign Wealth Fund. And although you've probably not thought a lot about the Norwegian Sovereign Wealth Fund here, understand it's the largest sovereign wealth fund in the world. He manages $3 trillion with a T in assets, $3 trillion. And he has taken a somewhat aggressive stance as a man with the nickname the Viking, would you expect, okay? And he's telling his employees the use of AI cannot be voluntary, okay? If you do not use AI, you will not be promoted, and you'll probably be fired, okay? This is one of the most amazing things we're going to experience in our lifetime. It's crazy. If you're not involved now, you're falling behind, and you'll never get back on the offensive. Now, this man knows of what he speaks, because what they go on to say is it used to take multiple days to create the analysis, to create the logic behind whether they wanted to do a trade, either buy or sell assets, stocks, bonds, whatever, currencies. Now it takes them 10 minutes, okay? From days to 10 minutes. So AI makes us both more efficient and better at the job we do, and we are just at the beginning, right? And you look at the growth of the sovereign wealth fund, because as you may not know, Norway is an oil-rich region. A lot of people don't know. It's not Saudi Arabia, but they have a lot of oil in Norway. And so what they do is they take the profits from oil and they diversify by buying in assets all over the world. And so why is he so bullish on AI? Well, this one organization is saving 213,000 hours of work time, the equivalent of 100+ people. That's a hell of a lot of time saved for one organization. It's not a very big team either. Okay. And so the verdict is in. 82% of companies report positive ROI looking backward into 2025. 96%, so a very important 14% increase, are projecting that they will see positive ROI by the end of this year, 11, 12 months from now. And the more use cases that we invest in, the more we use it, the more aggressively we use it, the different ways that we use it are driving how high the ROI is, right? So there's ROI if we use it for one function, and then there's ROI if we use it for 8 functions, and there's a significant improvement, right? So the more we lean in, the higher our ROI becomes. And then what's really important, this is where we want you guys to be. We want you to be that third that is reporting significant or transformational ROI, right? Transforming the business. Not just getting a 10% productivity improvement, but transformational improvement in the business. Now, one of the things I will tell you as an entrepreneur, I would never call on regulated industries because the time for them to make decisions was way too long and you'd run out of cash. So I would never call on the insurance industry. I would never call on the pharmaceutical industry. I would never, ever call on investment banks because they were insanely conservative because they're highly, highly regulated. And yet, and Rich was there, and Taylor was there. I led a workshop, did a panel at our big AI conference in Boston, and oh my God, I had the Global Chief Information Officer of Liberty Mutual. She's the MIT CIO of the Year in 2025. Josh Gagne, who amongst other things is a professor of epidemiology at Harvard Medical School. He's the head of the epidemiology business at Johnson & Johnson, and he's the co-chair of their Global AI Council. Okay? And Brianna, who's responsible for change management at JP Morgan Chase. And I can go on and tell you that the world has turned upside down because some of the most aggressive adopters today of these AI tools are regulated industries. Okay? To give you a sense that even the most conservative companies on the planet are not waiting for Godot. They're not waiting around. JP Morgan has 250,000 people using their LLM suite today. Okay? Think of that. 250,000 people running AM, right? They are seeing dramatic improvements in the time that they discover new drug targets, new vaccine targets at J&J. The metrics that Monica reports, right, she's another GE-trained executive. She spent 25 years at GE. This woman is world-class. Okay, the way she runs her operation is staggeringly impressive. The benefits that they are seeing, this is a company that has the transformational ROI. Okay? So I want to make you understand, this is not something for, it's not like just the early adopters of Silicon Valley are doing this. This is mainstream, okay? Now, how many of you have ever used HelloFresh? Anybody ever? Okay, a lot of you, okay? Or how many of you have used a competitor of HelloFresh? Right, so you understand the business model, right? And this was a business model that for a long, long time, there was no loyalty. Whoever gave you the best deal, I'm going to give you 28 meals for free, right? So that's what you're going to sign up for this week. And then someone else is going to come out with it's like an arms race, right? But what was really interesting is HelloFresh was sitting on 14 years of data. And they never used that data, which sounds pretty familiar, right? They never used that data. A lot of people have never used their data before. And then what happened was they faced a crisis because when COVID was over, a lot of people started going back out to eat, and they didn't mind going to grocery stores, and so their business fell off the cliff. And they had to reinvent themselves. And so what they basically said is, our data allows us to create a level of personalization with these new chatbots that was never possible before. So we're now going to monetize this data, and rather than having this 40 meals to choose from, you basically have an infinite variety of meals that they will create for you, okay? And that changed everything for them. And so now HelloFresh is starting to see, they're starting to recognize that by allowing this offer, this customer-facing offer to stand, it created a massive amount of complexity on their back end in their supply chain. And so they had to transform the whole organization to deliver against this, any meal at any time benefit, right? And so, for example, their procurement group went from being a cost center to being a strategic sensing group, right? Much more strategic than you typically think of as procurement, right? I mean, I'm sure some of you have done business with procurement. They don't typically have a lot of a sense of humor in a procurement group, right? They're pretty black and white. They know what they're trying to do, right? But the procurement group turned into a sensing system. And so, for example, they were able to pick up early signals in the market that Dubai chocolate was becoming a thing. How many people love Dubai chocolate in the room? How many people love the butter pie at Jeff Ruby's? There we go. Okay. I knew I had them. All right. I am now amongst the converted, by the way, okay, as of last night. I'm in the inside now, okay? So they're able to now use this data in a way that they couldn't before, right? So again, this is transformational. And middle managers, my friend, right, move from being planners, right, doing traditional types of middle management work, to being model stewards. So they were validating that the outputs were accurate. They were coaching teams, and this is exactly what we expect you to do when you leave these 2 days, is to coach your teams. Empower them, excite them, okay? They were, and then just like we did this morning with the sharing, they were sharing wins. They were sharing the benefits of the use of AI within the organization. They were bringing visibility and light to these different wins, okay? So it completely changed the nature of their work, right? And so this is the lesson is if you treat AI as incremental, you get pilots. If you treat it as the backbone of reinvention, you get a moat. And the moat for them now is highly personalized information about every consumer and the ability to give their consumer pretty much whatever it is that they want, okay? That is a strategic advantage that very few people could ever hope for before, okay? So automate support response have reduced resolution times by 60%, okay? They've reduced, and this is where your millennial friends and your Gen Alpha friends are going to be happy, lowered food waste and stockouts by 20 to 25%, right? So these are the benefits. Remember we talked about how there's a number of different points of leverage, and one of them is data. This is a great example of how you leverage data to create a transformation experience within a company. And then I'm sure everybody has walked into a Home Depot at some point. And again, I want you to just understand that, when you walk into Home Depot, you don't typically expect the people on the floor to know about every product in the store. It would be impossible. And so what has Home Depot done? They have created something called the Magic Apron. And they have basically put chatbots, AI capability in the hands of everybody walking the floor. So when I go in and I say, I want to build a deck, or I want to, redo my bathroom or redo my kitchen, they're able to have a lot of context. They're able to draw upon all of the different sources of data across Home Depot and print out something that's quite prescriptive down to the final details. So now all of a sudden that hourly employee is coming off as an expert because they've empowered that person to be an expert. They have brought all that knowledge and all that intelligence to them in real time on the store floor. Okay? So they have a 14% productivity lift for their customer support agents when they're assisted by generative AI, measurable gains in speed and service accuracy, and they can fulfill complex customer queries such as complete deck staining material lists with one generative command. Okay, this is what's possible. Okay? All right, and so let's step back now, right? So where are we in the world, right? Our grandparents, our great-grandparents, they began, possibly as far back as the Industrial Revolution in England in the 1780s, right? But we have gone through, right? This is not the first time we've seen this movie, right? This is not the first time people were gathering to say there's new technology that is changing the world around us. We've seen this movie since the 1780s, right? And there have now been 6 waves of innovation. The first one was the classic Industrial Revolution, where we used water power and we were able to create iron. Okay? Every one of these waves of innovation was driven by some very small but very powerful set of inventions and innovations, driven by science, driven by engineering. Okay? And every one of them changed the way that we worked. Every one of them changed the way that society functioned. Okay? And every single time, the leaders in that era had a dilemma to face. Do we double down on our playbook the way that BlackBerry did, the way that Blockbuster did? By the way, Netflix offered to sell itself to Blockbuster for $50 million. Netflix is about to take over Warner Brothers. They're about to own Hollywood, okay? That is one of the biggest misses of all time, right? So when you think about a guy like Wayne Huizenga, who was the CEO of Blockbuster, he had a dilemma, right? Do I take these crazy dudes from Silicon Valley seriously, right? Can you really order movies online? That doesn't seem very plausible. Well, it turns out it was, right? So what happens is there's always a massive amount of creative destruction. There's a lot of organizations that cannot leap to the next innovation wave. They have just chosen not to be bold and courageous and do that, okay? And they are now in the great graveyard, in the innovation graveyard, right? But what really started to change for all of us is when we moved into the digital era, because atoms are not confined, right? Atoms are inertia, but digital bits move at the speed of light. So if you think that the world has started moving faster and faster, really beginning around the time of the World Wide Web, you're right. But it's only become fast. So each of these curves is steeper, meaning that the rate of change is higher, and the length of the epoch is narrower, because the technology is compounding. So we're now in this 6th wave, okay? Will there be other waves? Of course there will. But nothing up until now comes anywhere close to what we're seeing, right? So I love this phrase, right? There is danger in reckless change, yes, but there's equal or greater danger in blind conservatism. And the phrase, that's not the way we do things around here, is exactly what I'm talking about, okay? That's blind conservatism, okay? So I'm going to just share with you a very quick story, which is an analogy. So let's go back 66 million years, okay, before AI, and we have this lovely octopus, and we have his cousin, the ammonite, okay? And then something kind of remarkable happened. A meteor hit the Earth. Now, the meteor was pretty big. It was the size of the island of Manhattan. That's a hell of a day on Earth, okay? And what would happen when you see a meteor the size of Manhattan hit the Earth? Well, a number of things. Acid rain fell from the sky. The temperature of the ocean spiked. All the food webs disappeared. And the Ammonite did a blockbuster, okay? They basically just gave up. That was the end of the Ammonite. So these people just found a 66 million year old fossil. That's pretty cool. You got to figure out where you put that in your house, right? Yeah. But the difference is that the Ammonite was biologically created for stability. It thrived in a world of stability, where ocean temperatures were constant, the food supply was constant. It was not designed for change. And as a result of it, it went away. The octopus, however, still with us today, 66 million years later, it's the octopus inside of calamari, right? It's like Intel inside, right? What would we do without the octopus? But what makes the octopus such a great analogy for Fisher Holmes or any innovative business is the octopus has 8 arms. And what's interesting is every one of those arms has a brain. So the octopus has 9 brains, okay? 8 more than we do, okay? And so these brains are able to communicate with one another through something called a neural necklace. So every one of their arms could be sensing something different at the same time, but they're all communicating back to the central brain in terms of what's happening, right? And it has certain RNA which allows it to enjoy continuous adaptation, okay? So it's able to emit more proteins, so when the water gets colder, it's able to adapt, right? It doesn't throw it off of its game. And so we had a similar meteor hit the Earth in November of 2022, okay? And we all know it by name as ChatGPT, right? And I'm not exaggerating when I say this, right? And what we don't want to do is be this team, right? Patience is not a virtue here. It's not years away. It's now. And we're not going to wait for it, right? So every single element of our business model is under threat. Every single element, right? It's how we deliver value, right? How do we produce that value from a construction point of view, right? How do we deliver that value? And what are the economics, right? So it's under threat, the way a lot of the companies that David shared with you, under threat. And when you're under threat, you have 2 choices. You can either disrupt or be disrupted. And I think we all know what we choose, okay? So any enterprise wants to be on a regenerative trajectory, very much like the octopus. We want to continue to adapt to whatever's around us, okay? Now, that's not easy. Much more likely, at some point, we're going to lose our way, and there's going to be some kind of third-party aftershock in the market, and it's going to lead us to fail. It's going to lead us to run out of steam. Happens all the time, all day, every day, right? You probably heard just today, Saks and Neiman Marcus, 2 of the great retail brands for women who love to shop at high-end stores, they just declared bankruptcy, okay? Nobody is safe. Nobody is safe from being disrupted today, okay? And what happens, right, in the blink of an eye is this classic disruption cycle where you're very confident, okay, you know, our playbook is working, we don't have to worry, don't take those new companies seriously, they got no game. And then one day, at least to the executive team, although a lot of people outside the company are seeing this happening, right, they know the train wreck is coming, it's just a matter of when, there's a huge collapse. And this is BlackBerry, as an example, okay? And it's almost impossible to recover at that point, right? You've lost your way. You can't recover. So this is one of the great examples of all time, and I suspect many of you had BlackBerries at some point in the past, okay? And it's not that they didn't see what was going on. They saw it. They refused to acknowledge it, period, okay? It's the antithesis of transformative leadership. And this is the kind of, you know, stock performance that, you know, would turn anybody's stomach, right? And once they were unable to show that their BlackBerry storm was not able to keep track of what our friends from Apple with their new iPhone were doing, that collapse happened and it was just straight down ever since, right? And these are the things. Now, General Electric, and I'm a huge fan of General Electric. I think the GE people are some of the best trained people I've ever met and have hired. And yet, GE is more or less no more, right? And if you've not been paying attention to GE, it's been broken into parts. And unfortunately, it could not make the transition to the digital era. It was masterful in many of the previous iterations, previous ways, but it just could not figure out a way to master the digital era. It just didn't have the ability to do so, and it's no longer with us. So what we're seeing is industries that are more traditional. Thomas runs one of the largest private equity funds in the world. You're going to see a lot of tipping points where old behavior better change very quickly. If you're on the wrong side of that behavior change, it's going to get ugly quickly, okay? And then again, massive, massive pools of capital that are being accumulated, right? It used to be that a lot of these companies were venture capital funds. Now they're saying, no, we're not going to invest in startups. We're going to invest in people that we believe in traditional industries have the best leadership team to disrupt the rest of the industry. And we're going to throw a lot of money at them and make sure that AI is infused in every element of their business, okay? So what are the business implications for you in the room, given all this? This is one of my favorite quotes. Alvin Toffler is a futurist who lives in Boston. The illiterate of the 21st century are not those who cannot read and write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. Do you think it's easy to unlearn? When the playbook has worked for you for 20 years, you think it's easy to say, you know, that playbook just ain't working anymore. It's not. So I will tell you, as an entrepreneur, as an entrepreneurial professor and mentor, everything that I knew about starting tech companies is different in the last year, completely different. And if I pretended it wasn't, my advice to my mentees or my students would be completely useless to them, okay? As an educator, the way that I assess my students is completely different in the era of AI, because I know they're just one prompt away from cheating, okay? And I'm not going to judge that, but I'm going to tell you that it's human nature. I cannot give them a 30-page Harvard Business School case study and ask them to read it, synthesize it, and then come prepared to class to discuss it, which I could for a long, long time, because they ain't doing that no more, right? And so what do? I don't give them 30-page Harvard Business School case studies to read the night before. I write a short case study that I have them read at the beginning of class, and we discuss it. Now I can judge their critical thinking skills, right? So I have had to unlearn a lot of things that worked really well for me for a very long time, and I encourage you all to think about what it is that you're needing to unlearn. So here's one thing we need to unlearn. So this is the study I mentioned earlier. This was run by both HBS and Wharton, fairly current. And what they basically did is they had 766 P&G professionals. Raise your hand if you're a P&G veteran. How many P&G people in the room? Okay, not as many as I would have expected given where we're sitting today, okay? I would have thought a lot more hands. More people like butter pie than worked at P&G, that I get, all right? So they cut this group in half, and half the group was a group of two people, a dyad, and they said, no Gen AI for you, okay? You're going to do things the old-fashioned way. And then the second group, it was an individual with AI, and they gave them the exact same task. And then they tried to measure as objectively as possible what the output was. And the individual with AI matched the performance of at least a two-person team without AI, okay? And one of the things it showed is that if these were two colleagues with different skill sets, different backgrounds, you could benefit from the knowledge that generative AI had, even if it wasn't your skill set. So it made up for the fact that someone might have been an accountant or a finance person, you're a marketing person, okay? I was able to equal that. The second thing they saw is that they were able to objectively measure that the quality of the solution was at least 3 times better when you used AI, because it's feeding you so much more context. It's feeding you so much more insights. And then, of course, you have to go back and review it. So we're able to replicate expertise that we don't innately have. We're able to deliver 3 times more the level of solution. And we can match or outperform seasoned experts. And what they mean by that is PhDs. So an individual can now match or outperform a PhD without AI, okay? And so what that means for you is that there are going to be organizations that are going to be entering into the home construction, residential real estate space that are going to be AI native companies that don't have to have 46 years of experience on their LinkedIn profile at Fisher Homes, like the way the man in the back of the room does, okay? They weren't swinging a hammer or carrying a bucket or helping mom sell homes at 3 years old, okay? And it's not to say that that's not valuable, but some of those benefits get diminished when you're able to draw upon this massive amount of information that is available at our fingertips, okay? So we now have moved into the era of democratized access to expertise. It's not a matter of, do we have it or not? We have it. Do we choose to use it? And so as a result of that, the business moat is no longer something that we can take for granted. Right? So I'm on the board of a company. It's a holding company. They have 6 operating companies. They are operating in aerospace and defense, right? And when you ask them what your moat is, well, our moat is physics. Based on everything I just told you, physics is no longer a moat, okay? So they're doing all kinds of physical and virtual testing of Boeing aircraft and aircraft engines and all these different things, right? Well, physics is no longer sustainable. We have to help them create a new moat. And we're looking at the data they've accumulated over the last 80 years to help them do that, just the way we did with HelloFresh, right? So there are 2 clocks that we are now under the gun of, okay? And there's a big gap between the 2. And so on the left-hand side, clock 1 is measuring how fast AI capabilities are improving. And as I just shared with you, they're doubling every 4 months, okay? And you can set a clock to tomorrow there will be 2 new podcasts in my feed about 2 new amazing things that I've never heard of before. And then there is the Fisher Homes internal clock, how fast you are moving as an organization. And no one expects you to move at this pace because the people leading these firms are sleeping on cots in their office and working 7 days a week. But what you have to understand is, unlike what I showed you with those 6 ways of innovation, which was an S-curve where things continued and then they start to plateau, we are working with something called the J-curve. There is no sign in sight that it will slow down anytime soon. In fact, most people think it will only go faster, okay? And so how do you reconcile an S-curve with a J-curve? How do you do that? How do you ensure that this doesn't get out of control, doesn't get away from you, right? And so there's always going to be an AI adoption gap. There's always going to be some lag time between what goes into the market and what you're able to bring in-house at Fisher and take advantage of. It's inevitable. But at the same time, and what we're doing today is we're trying to set a step function. We're trying to say, okay, this technological change is really moving quickly. And we're now finally saying, you know what? It's our time to reset the clock. We are going to do everything we can to close that gap. This is what we're here to do. Okay? And we know that not every organization is going to move at the same speed. Okay? So we have to acknowledge that there are going to be different departments, different teams that are going to have different levels of velocity or clock speed. And we're going to have to understand how to manage that. Right? And what we want to do is we want to lift up those that are not moving at the higher clock speed. Right? We want to have sort of one continuous approach to this. So that's why you're here, is to lift up the people working for you and help them feel the sense of urgency that I hope I'm imparting to you right now. Okay? All right. And so this is the opportunity for Fisher. The opportunity is to be the leader pulling away, right, by building a compounding moat. Because with each successive success, you're standing on the shoulders of prior successes. And so things start to actually build on themselves, like the second layer of the house, for example. And so what we're trying to do is we're trying to create a flywheel, okay? And if you're in marketing, people in marketing know what it means to create a flywheel, okay? Through social media and through, outbound campaigns, right? And so what we know is the higher the investment we make, the greater gains that we're seeing. those gains are typically being immediately reinvested by organizations. They're not taking the gains from the business and paying themselves. They're not, giving dividends back to shareholders. Now, you're a private company, which is a very blessed place to be in this day and age. I would not want to be a publicly held company going through a transformation like this, right? I don't know how many of you know, what would you say is the percentage of public companies that exist today versus 5 years ago? About half of all public companies from before are no longer public, they're private. Because the market is so competitive and so unforgiving, right? So to be a private company is, I think, a blessed thing in a time like this. So people are immediately reinvesting the gains, okay? And so the focus is shifting to high ROI activities. That's exactly what Server's mandate is. They're going to help you prioritize, with the help of the leadership team, what those priorities are. And by focusing on these transformative workflows, this is what's going to separate you from the rest of the pack, okay? And this is where you get to have a compounding competitive moat. And I'm from Brooklyn, so I don't say things I don't mean, okay? And I will tell you right now, I think you have a remarkable opportunity to be one of these leaders. Full stop, okay? Because of the way you're managing this process, you have the ability to pull away from the industry. And I'm not going to say that it's not going to take a lot of hard work and discipline, and it's not going to be perfect. But by doing this now, you are really set up to succeed and do this, okay? And so over time, what's going to happen is, we're going to move into, right, we have an entry point. 3/4 of all quantified use cases are reporting time savings. And time savings is great, don't get me wrong. We'll all save time, and that's great. But that's not where the organization is going to get the highest bang for the buck. Improved decision-making, new capabilities, new businesses, new approaches, new business models. And ultimately, because we have all of these new offerings in the market, we're increasing revenue, right? So that is where sort of we look at this pyramid. The higher we go, the increasing ROI and strategic impact drives us to increase revenue. So we're moving again. Now I'm going to get back into the agent thing. Generic use, right? So people that are in the top 5% of users today. How many of you got a message? You know how Spotify does this wrapped thing at the end of the year? Spotify tells you what you listen to, and you say, oh my God, my taste is terrible. What was I thinking, right? My God. How many of you got the wrapped version of LinkedIn? How many of you got the wrapped version of ChatGPT? Because if you didn't see it, you got it.
I don't think it came out on the enterprise.
You don't think so, huh? No? Okay, you didn't find it, all right. But what I would say is, right, people were boasting about the number of chats they had. And some people's number of chats was insane. Like you wondered if they ever slept for the last year, okay? But, yeah, exactly. Insane, but, yeah, exactly, yeah. Why is that not a surprise to me, right? But for those people that are at the frontier, those people that are really pushing the boundaries and using it all day, every day, they're seeing, right, they're generating 6 times more messages to the chatbot. That's a hell of a lot of incremental messages, right? But when you go from generic use for productivity, for time savings, to integrating it into your workflow by using agents, now you see those people are 10 times more active in analysis and calculations. They're 17 times more active in coding, okay? So again, it's like any other tool. You get out what you give. The more time you invest in learning, the more benefit you get in return. And these are the people that are, again, they're sending 7 times as many messages to custom GPTs, okay, which we've mentioned several times here. So this is what I think Server is going to be able to help you do, is understand how to integrate this into your workflows, okay? And by doing so, right, you're going to be able to go from sort of narrow usage, which I think is where we are today, right, very narrow usage, to a much broader set of usage, and ideally to a much higher level of depth. And so let me start to move toward the wrap up here so we can take a break. Okay? So what I hope I've begun to do is provide some level of urgency to you that this is not an option. This is not a luxury. This is not, hey, if we get to it, we get to it, but, you know, there's a lot of stuff going on in our lives. And that instead we recognize that this is a critical moment in the history of this company. 46 years in, it's time to reinvent this company, okay? So, I love this quote. There are decades where nothing happens, and there are weeks where decades happen. Now, I don't normally quote Marxists in my room. We don't do a lot of case studies written by Karl Marx at Harvard, I can tell you that, okay? But Mr. Lenin, however, nailed it. It's more applicable today than it was when he said it 100 plus years ago, okay? Decades are happening every week. And at some point, if you don't acknowledge that, then it's going to get away from us. So I want to ask you to please think about your engagement, your commitment, your focus on rising your organizations to share the sense of urgency that I have hopefully imparted on you. When I was in this room a couple months ago, Tim was in the room, and I had done some research before I showed up, and I pulled up a few companies, and one of them was the Pulte Group out of Atlanta. And I said, Tim, do you compete with them? And his answer was every single day. Okay, so I suspect that's not changed in 75 days. You haven't put them out of business yet, right? That's going to happen this year. Okay, all right. So what are they publicly sharing about their initiatives around AI? We're going to see this word agentic a lot. Do we understand what agentic means? We probably should step back and, what is an agent? What is an agent? Yeah, please, want to let you share.
So an agent, instead of just giving you information, it can actually go and do a task. It can complete a thing.
Can you hear in the back of the room? One said no, one said yes. Stand up if you want to project with that booming voice you have.
I'm very loud.
Yes. All right.
So an agentic AI is, instead of just giving you information, it can do a thing. It can do a set of tasks. It can do something. Instead of saying, where's my project at now, you can say, update my project where it's at now.
Mm-hmm. That's great. Yeah. So again, we're moving from a thinking partner to basically an employee, an agentic or AI employee that can go off and complete tasks for us. And we're starting to see that these agents can run for 24 or more hours at a time. So they're able to engage in more and more complex tasks. So this is moving from thinking to actually doing. And so the first thing that the Pulte Group has done is they've created these agentic AI-driven project management systems, right? And then generative design assistants. So do you know what a generative design assistant is? What is generative design? So do I have any architects or designers in the room? Okay. So are you an architect? I am. Okay. And now, do you use the, oh my God, the company Rivet, right? So Rivet, right? So do you use Rivet? Is that a tool that you use?
Revit?
Yeah, Revit.
Yes.
Okay. Now, have you added on the front end of Revit a generative design tool where you can actually prompt in English and say, give me 100 designs like this, and it will instantly create 100 designs like this, and it will feed it into Revit?
I've not done that.
Okay. So what this is all about is I can now ask for a design partner, right? And we're seeing this in the automotive industry, the motorcycle industry, anywhere where there is design, commercial construction. And so SolidWorks is the owner of Revit, right? They got into the architectural and construction space. And so generative design allows you to come up with hundreds of designs in real time. And then you're able to feed it into your CAD system, and it's able to tell you what kind of material and how much that material is going to be, and is it manufacturable, right? So it takes all of these really creative designs and then gives you the practical operational elements of that. And then you can use good human judgment, right? You've been an architect for at least 10, 15 years, right? You're like 30 years old now, 35? Yeah? Yeah, okay.
Just a little bit.
Yeah, okay. I got it. I got you, right? And now he's going to apply his judgment and say, you know what? They just generated 100 designs for me, and I've now looked at all the parameters, and these are the 5 that I think are the most practical. Now I'm going to go in and look at these and decide on my own which is the 1 or 2 that I want to use. Okay?
Can I ask you a question about that? Are they pretty successful in using that, different firms now?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It's been in place for.
And uploaded programs, things like that, to
Yeah.
ChatGPT and say, hey, design me a floor plan with this list of parameters.
You can, but
ChatGPT's
ChatGPT's not custom built for this. Where generative AI is a front end to SolidWorks or a lot of these other CAD tools was purpose built for this. Okay, and it's been around 3 or 4 years now. It's not new technology. Okay, so they're using generative design, and so they're optimizing scheduling. They're getting updates in real time on risk detection, and they're able to interact with their customers in a far more, high velocity way. Okay? So what happens is the AI agent network reconciles project data from these sensors, these Internet of Things sensors. So it's able to capture this information in real time at the site. And it's able to capture these contractor updates, and it's able to synthesize all this information, and it can forecast schedule slippage for you in real time. So you know that you have a schedule that is now at risk, okay? They've been able to improve project delivery reliability by 21%, and they lowered unplanned overtime costs by 17%, okay? Now this is not transformative, but it is powerful. Okay, they're obviously focused on some high impact use cases. Okay, they've improved homeowner customer SAT scores by 26% because they've reduced the amount of time for design approval from 3 weeks to 5 days. Okay, that's what generative design is allowing them to do. Okay, so they're leaning in pretty heavily. And then we look at the group that David had brought forward, which was Lennar. And, isn't it interesting? They're also using generative AI tools in their design process as well. Okay, so this is not a hidden secret, right? And they're working with a competitor of Revit known as Autodesk. Autodesk is sort of the high volume producer, okay? Lower sophistication. And they're using the open API services from OpenAI. So this is where OpenAI is working with Autodesk, okay? And what they're saying is they're able to reduce drafting cycle times by 32%. And because generative AI is able to then feed into a CAD system, they're able to understand what's going to be the most effective. They're able to cut material use inefficiencies by 14%. And they're running these pilots both in Texas and Florida. So where are my market presidents for Texas and Florida? Anybody in the room? Okay, are you hearing about this, seeing this? No?
It's a little, where we're at, it's a little
yeah.
behind the times.
I get it, okay. I get it, but let me ask this. I mean, when you work with contractors, I imagine they work with a variety of different home builders, right? So are your contractors telling you that they're starting to see this stuff in play? No? Okay. Now that you're aware of this stuff, I suspect you're going to be more able to pick up on some of these senses, right? And then autonomous procurement and supplier management, they're able to use AI agents on bid evaluation and supplier management, getting 8 to 10% faster procurement cycles by predicting vendor performance. So they're able to model vendor performance based on different data that's being fed into the system and in real time tell you if you think that vendor is not going to fulfill its obligation. Okay? So I hope the message you take away from this is we're not the only ones trying to do this. And we need to understand that these things are low-hanging fruit, by the way. Okay? The fact that we've got a number of companies doing this tell me that this is very easily done. Okay? Very straightforward. And so if we just kind of recap what we see, Lennar is reducing design time by 32%. They've got a 14% higher material efficiency. Their procurement process is 8 to 10% faster than it was, all by using agentic AI tools. And the Pulte Group is improving on-time delivery by 21%. They're reducing costs by 17%, and customer SAT scores have gone up by 26%. Okay, now we'll move into adjacent spaces. This is a company called Cork Howard Construction. I don't know if anybody knows Cork Howard, but they are basically more of a commercial, not a residential construction company. Okay? And they're actually bringing AI into their financial operations. And they actually worked with a third party called Stamply, S-T-A-M-P-L-I. And Stamply created a bot called Billy the Bot. I don't know, not the coolest product name I've ever heard, but apparently it's working, right? They're automating invoice tracking and approval workflows. And Chris, wasn't that what you mentioned just a few minutes ago?
Yeah, whole process.
Okay, all right. Now again, I can't speak to whether, Billy the Bot and the Stamply are, world-class or not, but it's being done, right? The art of the possible. 50% faster invoice processing and improved AP accuracy. And as ChatGPT tells me, right, because I don't know this is coming from ChatGPT directly, it's one of the earliest confirmed examples, case studies, of an agentic AI workflow in operational construction management in a regional US firm. Okay, so this is a company I'd want to learn a lot about and model what they're up to. And then, to the extent that it matters, we have another company. They were not named with my research, but they are based in Illinois. And they're essentially using real-time monitoring, using sensors to predict mechanical failures on cranes. So they were able to reduce crane downtime by 30%. Okay? So these are all meaningful things that are well within the realm of possibility. And then who are my contract managers in the room? Who are the people that have to sweat through the contracts? Okay. So let me just share with you, I had spoken earlier about this older gentleman in Saudi Arabia. He led contracts for this company, right? You can imagine the size of a contract when you're building an airport terminal, right? A lot of moving parts. The way that I knew I had him is he was the first person to share. We took his standard contract, we put it into, at the time, ChatGPT 4. And within about 30 seconds, it gave us 100 new improvements with it, right? And his eyes were like saucers at that point. And that's when I knew I had him, okay? He could not believe it, right? But here I wanted to, because I know contracts are very important, I wanted to find examples of others who have benefited from using AI in contract management. The first one is Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan. And Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan manages 128,000 contracts in a given year. Is that volume bigger than what you got? A little bit? Okay. All right. And what they were able to do is they were able to feed it into generative AI, and they were able to uncover a lot of hidden financial risks. So there are a lot of duplicate services, a lot of auto renewals, a lot of inflation that they were able to pull out. And basically what they were able to do is they were able to generate $10 million in verified savings through the use of AI in their management of contracts. Okay? And this is not a very complex use case, right? This is something you could start doing tomorrow, right? There was not a lot of work here to stand this up. Okay? So these are just some examples that I think are indicative of what is possible in your industry. So now I want to ask, who else is aware of competitors or others using AI in any level within residential construction, residential real estate? So if you're not aware, I would suggest that you really start to be on the alert for this and start to bring some of these examples back to corporate. Okay? Your eyes and ears, right? There's no way that we collectively could know, but every one of us could come up with a couple, and that could potentially feed what we think are going to be the highest impact ROI projects going forward. Okay? So when you see some of these examples, are you surprised that this is something that is happening today, given what, the purpose of today's meeting? So I shared a number of, so we've got the person here who would be responsible for generative design, right? We've got the person here who would be responsible for contracts. Is anybody managing equipment uptime? Anybody have that as a mandate within your role or not? Or is that typically something that your contractors are owning? Okay. And then I would imagine, Chris, you're the person who would probably be most focused on, the invoice cycle, right? Invoice to accounts payable cycle. So I think we have all the people in the room And I would encourage you, and I'll share these slides with you, but I would encourage you to really dig in deep now and understand at the highest level of granularity possible what they're doing, how they're doing it, and how you might bring it into the operation here.